Today I will be rating Apocalypse. This is a B&M stand-up coaster at Six Flags America. Used to be Iron Wolf at Six Flags Great America, but that's not important. What I'm going to be doing is judging the ride based on everything about it. And so there are 9 categories that I'll be rating it upon. And at the very end, I will give it an overall score based on how much I like the ride. So we're going to start with the first category, which is duration. This ride clocks in at 2 minutes. And so that earns it a 6. Pretty good timing, not short, not too long. The next category is the speed, and so Apocalypse earns a 5, and that is because this coaster is at about 55 miles per hour, and so that's pretty good. I mean, it's not great, but it's a B&M stand-up. What do you expect? It's not going to go 90 miles an hour. Up next is the height of the coaster. This is how tall it is, and so Apocalypse earns a 4, and that's because it is about 100 feet tall. It's not that tall in the coaster spectrum. Up next is the smoothness of the coaster, and Apocalypse earns a 6 for smoothness, and that is because it's kind of smooth. It's not, greatly smooth, but it's not rough. It really depends on where you're sitting and also how much you raise your restraint, because stand-up coasters are never going to be very comfortable, but if you raise your restraint way higher and it's kind of digging into your middle, then you're going to find it to be a very rough coaster. But if you kind of leave some room in between the seat and your middle, then it is kind of smooth, and so that is why Apocalypse earns a 6 for that. Up next is the drop. This is how great the drop is, and Apocalypse earns a 5 because the drop is average. It's not great, but it's not perfect. It's not terrible, and so Apocalypse does earn a 5. Up next is the intensity of this coaster, and Apocalypse gets a 6, and that is because it's kinda intense. It's not fairly intense. It's not, parts of the ride are intense. It's got its bits and pieces. I think it helps that they have fire going off, and so it's mostly during that vertical loop and then also in that corkscrew after that brake run. Up next is the airtime, and this coaster gets a 2 for airtime simply because this coaster isn't about airtime. It's got not a lot. You're in your seat most of the time. However, it does have one little pop of airtime, and so that's why it does earn its 2. Up next is the theming of the coaster, and Apocalypse gets a 8. Apocalypse has a pretty good theme to it. I like apocalyptic theming, and they actually did a fairly good job of having wreckage around and having fire going off and graffiti on the walls and stuff like that. It's not fantastic Busch Gardens or Disney theming, but it's theming. It's actually pretty good, and so that earns Apocalypse an 8 because its theming is cool. It's got a fair amount. So now we've reached the overall score, and Apocalypse gets a 6, and that's because it's good. It's not great. I'd ride it again, but not more than twice in a row. It's kind of the average coaster. It's not fantastic, but it's not terrible. It's just average, and so, but it is a little bit above average. That's why it's not a 5. And so Apocalypse gets a 6. What did you think of this coaster? What do you like about this video? So remember to subscribe and post a comment. Thanks for watching.